please stand. Take your hats off, if you would, please. Gracious Heavenly Father, we do thank you and praise you for this opportunity to come together. We want to honor you in all that we do and say. Father, we pray you watch over all our men and women that put themselves in harm's way. Our military, law enforcement, firefighters, and others. Father, please protect them. Father, our country and the world is in great turmoil, and we face many perils. Father, we need your help more than ever. We pray, Father, you will unharden all the hearts, and your hand will be on all those that govern. Father, we pray that it is your will to restore our country back to the godly constitutional republic it was founded on. And we pray, Father, 2017 will truly be a new dawn for our country. In your name we pray. Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with justice for all. Thank you, folks. First of all, for all of you that may have missed or changed the meeting notice, we were going to have a citizen town hall, but the legislators are on a budget retreat, so we're going to postpone that. We'll have that later. But don't worry, we got a great meeting planned for you. Those of you in the back, if you would please keep it quiet, make your way forward.
Turn the radio off, please.
Someone, who's back there? Leon? Are you trying to turn the radio off? Great, thank you. Folks, school property tax elimination is on a positive roll. And the reason I know that is because the opposition is coming out of the woodwork. They're slinging mud, they're trying to do a smear campaign. But folks, let me tell you, I'm very proud of our people. They are fighting back, and they're fighting back with the truth. Now, we may need some of you to write some letters and so forth to Harrisburg at a later time, but I'll get into that then. We want to thank those of you that went to the York school board meeting. I believe it was last Wednesday. Those of you, I don't want to embarrass anybody, but if you're willing to stand, those who went, please stand. Okay, I know we had about 10 people that went. Some of them are here. I know Carlee went. You went, no? You didn't go. Okay, sorry about that. I know Eldon did. I know Rod did. Carol Gardecki did. Right, there's a whole bunch of them. And we really appreciate that you went. I know you could not speak. They didn't allow you to speak. However, Senator Fulmer was a speaker there, as you know, and he knew you were there. And that's very important that you have someone in back of you supporting you, so we appreciate that. Do any of you live in Fleetwood?
Thanks.
Anyone? What? Got one in Fleetwood? Anybody in Fleetwood? Okay, in the back. Well, Monday, I believe it was, they had a school board meeting. And one of the topics on discussion was the 7% property tax increase. Now let me just say that again, folks. 7%. Those of you on fixed income, are you going to get a 7% raise this year, increase? Are you? Well, I know the answer to that. And those of you that are not on fixed income, I'm sure your boss is not going to do that as well. The other thing, that's one of the reasons why we need to pass SB 76. The other thing they did, they passed a resolution. They're going to send it to Harrisburg that they do not and will not support SB 76, which is school property tax elimination. Folks, I don't blame them. Because if we pass that, we take their power away from them. And they do not want that. Please understand that if SB 76 passes, for them, well, first of all, the school board cannot increase anymore. But if there be any tax increase, it would have to be by you, the people. It would have to be a referendum. And that is why they do not want to give up their power and give it to the people themselves. And that's why we need to fight and make sure we do pass SB 76. We just completed one election, and now we're starting another election cycle. I believe it's the first day for nominating positions was February 14th. We have some candidates here in the back, and I will mention their name as soon as I find it. Well, I know we have John DiPaolo, wave your hand. John is assistant phlebotomary, and so he's what? Acting, okay. And he's running for re-election, if you want to call it that. We have Tina Boyd here. Tina, stand up to the back. She is running for Commonwealth Judge, is that correct? Come please, okay. We also have another judge candidate, that's Kelly Klein. Kelly, wave to folks. Okay, Kelly, thank you. We also have James Wilson, Berks County coroner. James, great. And we also have, Dennis Adams. I'm going to forget Dennis. Dennis is treasurer at the moment. He's running for re-election. Just a second. Brian Strand, District Justice, in the back there, all the way in the back. Great. Folks, if you haven't spoke with them already, when the meeting is over, at least stop by and chat with them a little bit. This gives you your opportunity to find out, what their positions are on different subjects. Our first speaker is going to be Police Chief Scott Eakens. Is he here, John? Scott? I can speak with you. Oh, okay. Scott is actually police chief. I believe it covers Northern Berks, which is Onaloni, Maiden Creek, and Leesport. Okay, that's great. Scott's going to talk about the heroin and opioid problems that we have. Folks, this is a very serious problem. You may have remembered last year we had District Attorney John Adams here, and he spoke about the problems on the county level. So we will have Scott here tonight talking about his particular area. Let's all welcome Scott Eakens.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. I'd like to give you not necessarily the county perspective on the opioid issue, but the police aspect of the opioid issue. And there's a big difference. We sign up to protect and serve the public every day, support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the laws of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Lots of times we are approached throughout the year, officers, and asking us, my son's trying marijuana, how can you help him? How can you help me help him? They're referring those people to agencies across the county. The only way the police can help you or someone that you know get off of any drug is to arrest them. Because after we arrest them and they go through the court process, the courts determine what their punishment is going to be. And the courts are the ones who mandate that these people go to drug treatment or alcohol treatment facilities, and they are held, the gun's held a little bit to their head, forcing them to seek get the treatment, or at least have someone talk in their ear about the treatment that someone else has recognized that they need. The laws that's passed in the state of Pennsylvania regarding opioid use is a whole different animal. However, it is a problem. Just to give you some reference, in the year 2015, there was 1,205 traffic-related deaths in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. There was 3,500 overdose deaths in the state of Pennsylvania. 2016, the state of Pennsylvania is one of the few states across the country that actually had a little bit of a reduction in traffic deaths last year. We were at 1,189. And the numbers for overdose deaths for 2016 are not in yet, but I would not be surprised if it surpasses 5,000. Some methodology that I used to arrive at that number is that you may recall there was a rather lengthy article on the front page of the Reading Eagle yesterday. Take what you read in the paper, divide it in half, and leave 50% of that. Trust me, I've been misquoted. However, they listed some statistics in there that babies born in the Reading Hospital that were already addicted to drugs in 2015 was 26. 2016, it was 40. So doing a correlation of the numbers, how I arrived at what I expect will be a very large increase between 2015 to 2016 of people dying from opioid abuse. They've already had 13 so far this year, and this is just for Reading Hospital here in Berks County. Part of that article yesterday was that they announced a new service that is being done by the Treatment Access Services Center, known as TASC. TASC is now going to deploy personnel 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, available at the Reading Hospital, to where when an overdose victim comes in there, that they will be asked and encouraged to seek treatment. No one can force the heroin addict who has been revived either on the street or once they get to the hospital to seek treatment. The only way they can be forced to seek treatment if they get arrested and the courts mandate it. If you're made to go to treatment, your likelihood of success is significantly less than if you decide to do it on your own, therefore, because you've now recognized you have a problem. How do we combat the opioids? Opioids are Vicodin, Percocet, Percodan, all the drugs that are prescribed to people when they have surgeries or they have injuries that don't require surgery, however, need pain medicine to reduce their pain. And all that we're inundated with by the press across the Commonwealth is, well, as soon as you take 3 Vicodin pills, you're going to be hooked on opioids, and that's going to suddenly lead you into sticking a needle in your arm with heroin. I don't buy it. I've had 13 orthopedic surgeries. I've taken more damn Vicodin than most people ever have, and I don't feel the need to go out and steal from people, rob from people, and get my money to go into the city of Reading and buy my heroin and stick a needle in my arm. However, it's a problem that we are all faced with. It affects all of us because we are all victims of the crimes that the drug addicts are committing to support their habits. And the state is going to throw a lot of money at this, whether we like it or not. And so I think we should, in some way, get behind the efforts to try to reverse this trend. How that's going to happen, I don't know. That's way beyond me. In the short term, Narcan, naloxone. We've read or seen in the newspaper a lot over the last year or two that the district attorney is pushing that he is providing naloxone to police departments. One of the people who was very slow to come to the ball game on providing naloxone in the police cars to all the police officers, Scott Eakens. This week, yesterday, I just picked up our first 3 kits of naloxone. While I am against it on a personal level, I am a police officer, and it is my job to support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the laws of Pennsylvania and protect the public that we serve. even the heroin addicts. More importantly, the heroin is being cut with very, very, very dangerous drugs like fentanyl and some others that are putting the police officers at risk when they do the field tests on the kits to see if it is heroin to make that arrest. And there is a much, much greater risk on police officers doing the field test on the heroin addict when we find a little heroin in the car, that police officers, I'm unaware of any cases in the state of Pennsylvania, are at great risk and would need the Narcan to save their lives. So for both reasons, it's why this week we've joined the program and our police department are going to start carrying Narcan. Part of the problem with Narcan and part of the problem with the law is we can go to the house, we have already done it. We've been to the house with the needle sticking out of the arm of the heroin addict who overdosed or got a bad batch of heroin or whatever. And the ambulance arrived there because we weren't carrying Narcan yet, squirted Narcan up their nose and or did a IV from paramedic unit. And literally within a minute or two, they are as awake, as cognizant as you and I are standing here right now. It's a drug that works. I wish they could come up with one for cancer. It immediately reverses all effects of the opioid. The problem is, if they're 18 years old, if they're 18 years old and the ambulance wakes them up or the police wake them up with heroin and save their life, we can't even be forced to give them a pamphlet, let alone make them go to the hospital if they refuse. That is an area of the law as it's written now that I would like to see changed. And Commissioner Barnhart has just put together a rather large opioid commission in the county. We've had our first full meeting last month, and the next meeting's coming up next week. And he has asked me to sit on that committee for a short period of time. It's one of the first things that we brought up to lobby the legislature to make that change, to at least force them to go to the hospital, to have access to these, be made available, the treatment that's available to them to help kick the habit. So, where do we go from here? I don't know where we go from here. We're going to throw a lot of money at this. My suggestion to you is if you know anyone who knows someone who is an addict, please refer them to the district attorneys or to the task office or to Berks County Mental Health, or any of those agencies can at least point you in the correct direction to begin to get the appropriate paperwork to that person to help them overcome the addiction. We're not going to solve it by complaining about it. We're going to throw money at it, as I've said numerous times now. I have 30 seconds left. I thank you very much for the opportunity to be able to address the group. I know it was a short period of time, and I hope all of you stay safe in lots of avenues, and if you know someone, please refer them to get help. Thank you.
Well, no, this is actually a nationwide problem. Up next, we're going to have Carl Gardecki, who handles our Constitution class.
My Constitution class in March will be on the 13th, Monday the 13th. We will meet at 3 o'clock and at 6 o'clock in the Harvest Church in Fleetwood, as we usually do. I usually try to give you a really short something from the Constitution. And tonight I decided to talk about we are not a democracy. I think most of you know that. We are not a democracy. People throw that word around too casually. Our representatives in Congress call us a democracy. Our newspapers call us a democracy. We are a representative republic. If you find it hard to remember that, you say it when you say the pledge to the flag. You say, and to the republic, a representative republic. Democracies don't work very well anyway. because a democracy means everybody votes for everything. How would you like to have to go and vote every day on something? You wouldn't do it. People wouldn't do it. And besides that, in a democracy, you know, some people are very easily swayed. So if you get a good orator up there and he starts spouting off about something, he can convince people to do things they wouldn't ordinarily do. That's because they don't stop and think about it. That's what happens in a lynch mob. Somebody gets people worked up, and before you know it, somebody gets killed, and they wouldn't ordinarily do that if they sat and thought about it. This is why a representative republic works better. You choose representatives. You choose people that you think are going to consider different subjects. Think about it, talk about it, debate about it, come up with a good solution, and not rush to judgment. And don't let anybody get you worked up because they say, we have to agree, we must go across the aisle and work together. No, no, no. You go to Congress with ideas and you fight for your idea. You talk about your idea. You don't just say, okay, I'll go along with them and do what they want. You don't do that. You fight for what you believe in. And that's why we have a representative democracy. A representative republic, I'm sorry. Oh, God. See how prevalent it is? You fall for it. And I want to remind you, even Benjamin Franklin said it. When they left the Constitutional Convention, a woman stopped him and she said, well, Mr. Franklin, what kind of a government do we have? And he said, a republic, if you can keep it. And I think we are in danger of not keeping it. We have to stick to our guns. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. Just like to add one thing to that. You're going to hear a lot about the Constitution over the next month or so with the nomination for Supreme Court Justice.
No, we're not.
There's two schools of thought on the Constitution.
The rumor was there.
The right one and the wrong one.
I've been
Basically,
asked.
say this as best I can. You can either interpret the Constitution as our founding fathers wrote it and intended. Any changes to the Constitution should be done by the amendment process. Now think about this, folks. If they wanted the Constitution done any other way than the amendment process, they wouldn't have an amendment clause in the Constitution. Then there's another school of thought. Those that believe that the Constitution is a living, breathing document and can be changed by the whims of any generation. Folks, I believe in the first rather than the second. It usually is changed with the second by activist courts. And you see that all the time. They can't get it through the amendment process. They can't get it through legislation. So they take it to the court system. We have many activist judges, and so they get things passed that they could not get passed otherwise. And talk about activist courts. Think about the Ninth Circuit Court, what happened, a week or so ago. They must really live on another planet. Okay, off my soapbox. Next, we have Helen McMinn is going to be coming up and introducing Carlee. That really wasn't that much surprise, was it?
Hi, everybody. Okay, last month I was here and I asked for your prayers and your support for the March for Life in Washington, D.C., the National March for Life. So this month I am going to be introducing you to Carlee Mayo, who will give you her perspective on the absolute success of last month's march. Carlee is a wonderful young lady who represents the best of our youth. I am very proud of her and her sister Krista for working hard in our local area, and they are great defenders of life, and they support lifelines by raising money. for women in crisis pregnancies. So, Carlee, take it away.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for allowing me to speak this evening. My name is Carlee, and I'm 17 years old. I'll begin by saying that I am pro-life, ardently pro-life. I believe that everyone deserves a chance at life. It doesn't matter where they come from, who their parents are, their gender, their race, or their religion. Every life is precious. To put it constitutionally, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It says it right there. Life is an unalienable right. It cannot get any clearer than that. We look at our world today, and the world wants to talk about equality. Well, what about equality for the unborn? The world wants to talk about women's rights. What about the rights of a woman who is not yet born? The world wants to talk about social injustice. What about the injustice of eradicating the weakest and most vulnerable of us all, who cannot even fight for themselves? The world wants to say that Black lives matter, but what about the fact that almost a third of abortions are performed on African Americans? You cannot claim to stand for the rights of minorities, women, and the oppressed if you do not stand for the unborn. Just being pro-life is not enough for me, though. That's why my cousin, my twin sister, and I decided to create our own little pro-life club called the Defenders of Life. We raise money for Lifeline, which is a wonderful organization that provides women who have unplanned pregnancies with counseling, baby food, clothing, and ultrasound, and more. Most importantly, Lifeline shows them that there is another choice, the beautiful choice of life. Our club has raised over $2,000, and we're not planning on stopping anytime soon. I've also been honored to join the Reading and Berks March for Life committee for the past few years and helped put on our local March for Life. This year it will take place on Sunday, April 30th, so be sure to mark your calendar. Because of my pro-life views, I was thrilled to attend the National March for Life in Washington, D.C. this past month. It was even more exciting to witness Vice President Mike Pence, the first Vice President to ever make an appearance at the National March, speak so boldly and freely on the sanctity of human life. The tide is turning. Attending the National March is a profound experience. It's amazing to gather with hundreds of thousands of people who share your same view on something as important as the sanctity of life. However, the best thing about the march is the marchers themselves. Being in a crowd of people who are so extremely joyful and peaceful proves a point so much more than smashing windows and burning cars ever could. Instead of vulgar signs and swear words, which were very prevalent at the Women's March, we had marchers who prayed aloud and signs with messages of hope and love. I've always thought that the media's handling of the National March is frustrating, but a little entertaining as well. How far they'll go to belittle the march numbers or take a camera shot that makes us seem like a smaller crowd amazes me. They try to box us in at thousands or even tens of thousands. I don't think so. Try hundreds of thousands. Then they try to say that the crowd is mostly made up of middle-aged and elderly. I don't think so. Seeing as I was there, I can say that over 60% of the crowd was probably under the age of 30. Young people are stepping up to the plate and have become the backbone of the pro-life movement. Which brings me to my final point, where the pro-life movement goes from here. All across our nation and around the world, hearts are being changed. Our positive message of hope, love, and respect for all people is radical. It's changing the world. With all the advancements being made in technology, people are able to literally be shown that babies inside the womb are living human beings. People's eyes are being opened to the horrors of abortion as more and more former abortion clinic workers and doctors are realizing the error of their ways and becoming pro-life. A fire is spreading across our nation, a fire of compassion and love. There's a reason why attendance at the National March is made up of so many young people, because we are the pro-life generation, and we're going to change the world. Thank you.
Folks, that's fantastic. Carlee, you and your sister and your cousin, you're the future of our country. Thank you so much for taking the time to come up here today. Thank you so much. We're going to introduce our next speaker.
I just want to say a little bit about yesterday being Valentine's Day. And I can tell who in the audience got candy. You got little bumps on your hips. Anyway, if you all know Helen McMinn, you know that she's a friendly person. She talks to everybody, and she talked to Carlee and had Carlee come here. And she also talked to our next speaker at the election polls on November 6th, I believe it was. And she got to talking, and she sort of convinced her to come here and talk to us. This is Elaine Kopelev. Kopelev? Okay. Elaine was living in the USSR formerly, and she made her way over here to the United States. She's going to tell us a little bit about some of the hardships that her and her family went through, and some of the comparisons that are like over there, here. However, we know that Trump is going to take care of that and fix everything. So, Elaine, come on up here and let's hear your story. Please welcome Elaine.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for inviting me, and thank you for letting me speak. Sam, I would like to thank Sam for inviting me. As a matter of fact, two speakers before me, the young lady who was pro-life and the person who was speaking about democracy, I'm going to speak about socialism, something that's a foreign concept to most of us, unfortunately not to myself and my family. As far as pro-life, I'm very proud to be the next speaker. You're a wonderful human being. I'm an adoptive mother. My son right here, Sam, he's a child who was adopted from the Ukraine. And if anybody believes in pro-life, it's me. And I'm grateful for the opportunity to be a mother to this amazing young man. So, thank you. As far as my life in the former Soviet Union, I was born in the former Soviet Union, and everything in the former Soviet Union was a controversy. Even something as unimportant as my name. I was born on May 9th, which is a victory day over the German Nazi, and the former Soviet Union, the socialist former Soviet Union, mandated any child born on any holiday has to be named in honor of that holiday. So I had to be named Victoria. My parents did not want to name me Victoria, chose to name Elaine. In order for me to be named Elaine, they had to go through several government agencies up to federal level to get permission to name me Elaine, as crazy as it sounds. Life in the former Soviet Union was extremely difficult. People of 4 generations lived in the same small apartment, and sometimes people slept on the kitchen floors or mattresses in the kitchen because there was no place to live. The government controlled absolutely everything. A person could not change their apartments. If somebody were to get married and wanted to move in with his or her husband, they could not do it without government's permission. So basically people lived and died in the same apartment. If you were unlucky enough or lucky enough to marry somebody from a different city in the former Soviet Union, you would actually have to wait up to a year to get permission to move in with your husband. The government had to control absolutely everything under the sun. The life was intolerable, and the life kept on getting worse and worse. We were not raised by our parents. I have a wonderful mother who's right here, but unfortunately we were not raised by our parents because it was mandated again by the government that people had to work 6 days a week, and those who did not work ended up in jail. So we were raised by the school. We had to spend all our free time in school, and the school basically became our family. I consider myself lucky enough, as my parents, my mother, myself, and I'm an only child. We had one apartment all to ourselves with a bathroom, a communal bathroom, but still we didn't have to go outside to use the facilities. They were right there in the same apartment. Being in such close proximity to my parents, obviously I heard all of their discussions, and I've learned different things, how difficult the life is, how difficult it is to obtain food, how difficult it is to travel domestically. I don't even know anybody who traveled internationally. My parents taught me from basically when I learned to speak, don't ever say anything outside of the home. If you do, we may be denounced and we can end up in jail or worse. So as a child, we had absolutely no freedom. We already knew that we have to not only protect ourselves, but we have to protect our family. In the late 70s, the life became impossible in former Soviet Union. It just reached the point where I came from the third largest city, Kiev, in Ukraine right now. An ambulance would take over an hour to come if there's an emergency, and the ambulance was not equipped to help. So people basically either died, or if the ambulance did pick them up, they took them to the hospital, but there was no guarantee that there won't be any relief. The only two drugs that were mandated by the Soviet Union was penicillin and aspirin, nothing else. If you needed penicillin, insulin, I apologize, thank you. And insulin and aspirin. Penicillin was not a drug that was approved by the government, and it was not mandatory. So there was a huge child mortality, infant mortality, also women giving birth because there was no facilities. And things kept on getting worse and worse and worse. More freedoms were being taken away. And then the war was in Afghanistan, obviously. So my parents made a very brave decision. They decided to try to immigrate to the United States. Do it the right way, the official way, file all the proper documents. The very day my parents addressed the government with their desire to move to the United States, to immigrate to the United States, they were immediately fired. The very next day I was asked to leave the school because they just considered us as enemies of the state, and obviously me as a child I was also considered an enemy of the state. And the result was unknown. It took over 2 years, and we could have ended up in America, which thank God we did, or we could have ended up in Siberia. That was also a possibility because my parents were considered traitors, so was I as a child. So luckily enough, we made it to the United States. God bless this nation. Our life in the United States was not easy. My parents refused to take any social programs except any help from the state. They did not bring me to the United States. And I remember my mom saying this to me when I was not much older than my son, saying to me, I did not bring you to this country so this country can support you. I brought you to this country so you can have freedom, that you can do something with your life, that you can become a viable human being. And I'm very grateful for my mom because I have worked from the very first day I came to the United States until today. In the beginning, I spent a year just learning English. My English skills were non-existent. My parents got a job second week in the United States. They did not speak English, but they were able to obtain low-paid positions that did not require much English language. So things were very, very tight, very difficult. While I was learning English, I was trying to get part-time jobs, doing whatever I could do to earn extra money. Even in the United States, we still lived in poverty. We could not afford a car nor the telephone. Air conditioning, heat was a luxury that we simply could not afford. We were just here to survive and work for my future. Also, I want to mention that when my parents made the decision to immigrate to the United States in order to make life easier for me, they were in their 30s. And that's when they were basically ready and willing to give up their lives in order for me to have a chance. So I applaud them. Anybody who was able and willing to do this, and I thank my mother for that. Upon becoming somewhat proficient in English, I went to Northeast High School in Philadelphia. The education system in the Soviet Union was much more superior. I hate to say this, but that is a fact. Also, because we spent so much time in school, we were more inundated, we learned more things. So I went from 5th grade in the former Soviet Union to 10th grade in the United States. Yeah, just because of the age difference, I was already 14 years old, and they needed to do something with me, so they couldn't put me in law. Compliments to my parents because they made it available to me. While in high school, I had 2 jobs. I kept on working through high school. Upon graduating high school, I was admitted into Temple University, which is the cheapest state school and closest to us. I graduated Temple University with a degree in real estate finance and business law. While in college, I worked 3 jobs. I went to college 2 full days from 8:30 in the morning until 8:30 at night on Tuesdays and Thursdays, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. I worked full time. I sometimes 3 and sometimes even 4 jobs. If some of my friends were sick or needed me to cover, I was always there and willing and able to cover. Upon graduating the Temple University, I started working for a financial firm. I worked for the company for several years, and I guess I was doing very well. I was putting in a lot of hours. And my next job was working for the Resolution and Trust Corporation, RTC, the company. It's a quasi-government agency that basically took over the assets of all the failed and defunct SNLs, and our job was to sell those properties, get the money back to the federal government, and place people into homes. So I've done that for a while. The Reagan years were amazing years for me personally and for the United States. That's when I decided to try my life and open up my own company, which I did. I opened up a mortgage company. I helped the community because of my ability to speak Russian. I helped the community, and I also had a chance to run my own business. And again, thank you to Mr. Reagan for regulating the industry, for not believing in large government, for believing that people can govern themselves, and for giving us a chance. So those were the best years. In 2008 was a pivotal year in our lives. My husband and I decided to adopt a child. We did not want to go through domestic adoption. We decided to adopt a child from the most neediest place, and at that time the most neediest place was southeastern Ukraine, as you know, in the midst of the war right now. And that's how I got to meet that young man. He was 3 years old. He doesn't remember anything, but God gave us a gift of this beautiful child. While I was completing the adoption, I had to stay in the Ukraine for 2 months because first I had to do all the adoption documents and then all the immigration documents. So again, everything is done legally, and that's to come to the United States legally. Living in Ukraine for 2 months after being in the United States for over 20 years was shocking. I could not believe that I came to the same place I left some 20 years ago. I mean, so much happened in the United States, yet nothing changed in Ukraine. Same small apartments, same public bathrooms, shower facilities, animals running around. The one thing I will tell you, the stores were full of products, but no one had the money to buy anything. So I'm not even sure what's cruel, not to have the money to have products or the other way around. So people are extremely poor. Upon coming to the United States and being a mother and bringing my child to the United States, I started looking at life differently. I started to appreciate America more for what it is, for the opportunities and chances. And then Obama and Clinton happened. Well, apologies, but Obama and Clinton definitely happened because they tried to take this wonderful country, this free country, and I agree with the speaker before me in reference to democracy. Perhaps democracy, absolute democracy does not exist, but at least this country, not at least, but this country has freedom of choice, ability to work if you wish to work, medical care, social programs. This country is the most blessed country in the world. And Obama and Clinton tried to take it and make it back into a socialist country. Well, I'm a product of a socialist country, and I can tell you, thank God, those two are nowhere near the White House. And I pray to God that neither Mrs. Clinton nor President Obama would ever be in any public office again. That's not going to be good for anybody. Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm getting emotional, I'm sorry. And with the election on November 8th, and I would consider it a miracle because Donald Trump is not your standard presidential material, and as you would agree with me, but he's a brilliant businessman, he's a capitalist, he's somebody who built an empire, he's intelligent, proactive gentleman who I believe will take this country to where it needs to go, who will make this nation great again for all of us. And I believe all of us have to do whatever we can, in whatever capacity, fighting for human rights, fighting for pro-life, which, like I said, if anybody's pro-life, that's me. I'm for obvious reasons. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. We have to pool our resources. We have to be grateful for this great nation. This is not a perfect nation, but this is a great nation. This is a nation who's given an opportunity to somebody like myself, who came to this country, who did not know the language, who did not have even proper education, helped me get education, postgraduate education, gave me an opportunity to run a business. I'm a homeowner, I'm a wife, I'm a daughter, I'm a mother, things I would not dream of having in a socialist country. Let's just all pull together, and I'm speaking from my personal experience as a product of the former Soviet Union, or a child of the former Soviet Union. Let's all pull together. Let's do whatever it takes to help Mr. Trump, or President Trump, and Vice President Pence. Let's help him, social media, meetings like that, marches, whatever we need to do. We have to make sure that our liberty is protected. We have to believe in the blessing that we have to live in this wonderful country. All I can add is, God bless America. God bless you folks for having me here. And this is a land that was literally blessed by God. And let's not waste that opportunity. God bless America. This is what I'm fighting for. Thank you so very much. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you for staying up. I'm going to get emotional. Thank you so much. Do you have any questions? Shall I?
One question. Someone has a question for now, or we have to break up. Question?
Oh, sure.
They know that I met we just come back from the Soviet Union and everything. She said it's true.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Just real quick, I remember when I read her speech and she tried to memorize it, but one thing that bothered me is in 2008, she lost everything because of the crash. Okay, but she built herself back up.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You need to speak in every high school. Yes.
You got it. It's my honor and my pleasure and privilege. Yes. Of course. Of course. The Russian Empire broke up in 1917, which was under the Tsar Nicholas II. Upon the breakup of the Russian Empire, the Reds won the Civil War. There was a civil war between 1918 to 1920 between the Reds, who were pro-communist or socialist, and the Whites, who were pro-Tsarist army. They lost, and it became the Soviet Union became a socialist country. In 1991, with the help of President Reagan, anything you do, it comes back to Reagan. If you remember his famous speech, Mr. Gorbachev, let the wall come down. When the Berlin Wall came down, so did the Soviet Union. All the 15 republics that were basically gathered together and born during the war, Civil War, broke up into 15 separate states. Russian Federation is just one of those 15 states. Ukraine is another one. There's Armenia, Azerbaijan, and all other ones. But the major difference is all the republics that have broken up right now, they're definitely not socialists, they're trying to stay away from socialists and communists, and things are going fairly well, except for southeastern Ukraine, where there's, I can't comment, I don't know enough, but where there's an ongoing war. Otherwise, the countries are doing very well, independent countries. Does that make sense? Make sense?
Elaine, thank you so much. Folks, we certainly are so fortunate. We want to thank God every day for what we have, and just look around the world, what others do not. Up next is Eldon. He will introduce our next speaker.
This is turning out to be quite a night. We struggled to put this agenda together, and it seems that last minute stuff always works out best. I stand here and I look out there, and I am really thankful for the young people I see in the front row. And I would really like you to encourage you to come back next month and bring your friends. Because someone remarked, you're our future, and we know it. Anyhow, the person I'm going to introduce is a man we know. He's one of our county commissioners. We all know that he's a man of few words. So I want to ask you to encourage him to speak as much as he can. I could stand up here probably for 20 minutes and remark on his accomplishments and what he does for us, but I think most of us are well aware. So in this case, Leinbach, Commissioner.
Elaine, a lot of people here know me, but the biggest reason I'm involved in government today is because of a 5-week trip to Hungary and Czechoslovakia in 1979 to live with my relatives. It was that experience at 20 years old that helped me understand what we have in America. In October of last year, I was 12 miles from the Ukraine border. It was only the second time I'd been in the town of Mihalotsa, 1979 and 2016. And I will tell you, it was a moving experience, seeing some of the same relatives who were free, who in 1979, it wasn't even hardly a dream that they could be free. And folks, at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. I'm going to be talking about criminal justice reform, but at the end of the day, if we are not free as a people, we have no hope, we have no future. What happened last fall was pretty incredible. How incredible? I'll tell you. I was interviewed this morning in my office by a reporter that wanted to interview somebody that voted and supported Donald Trump. Except, guess where this reporter was from? Finland. And so I did the interview. It was not a classic American I got you interview. It was a great opportunity. And so I asked him, have you ever been to America before? And he said, no. I said, how long have you been here? He's been here about a month. He's going to be here a whole year. He's doing a number of projects for his newspaper. Most of their readers are online. So I asked him, what do you think of America? Well, it goes to the earlier speaker. He said, the democracy here is amazing. I said, wait a minute. We're not a democracy. And in fact, the broad belief that we are is a big part of the problem with people not understanding what happened in the election last year. And so I gave him a quick primer. And guess what the first thing I said to him was? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic. So there's no question. Those are simple things. Understanding our freedom, understanding what we are. But if you don't understand the fundamentals, nothing else is going to make sense. The fundamentals are critical. The issue of bail, jail, and common sense. Some of you have heard me talk about this before, and I'm going to put a timer on here because I do like to speak. But I also want to make sure that we have time for questions.
Christian, I got you on timer also.
I just started mine now. When did you...
39 seconds gone.
Okay. When you look at the county budget, there's a category called courts and corrections. It's actually two categories. It's the prison and courts together. That total is about $90 million. And that $90 million all comes out of your local property tax. The local property tax for the county is $137 million. That means that nearly 70% of the budget from property tax in this county goes to fund courts and corrections. Let me give you some more statistics. In 1985, the United States federal, state, and county jails incarcerated 743,000 people. If we had continued to incarceration based on a per capita, today that number would be about 988,000. But in reality, in 2016, the United States incarcerated 2.3 million people. Today, in virtually every state, the three greatest costs are human services, broad category, education, and corrections. Let's look at another comparison. How many people live in the United States today? We have 315 million people. The country of India and the country of China have 1 billion people each. They incarcerate the same amount of people as the United States. There's something seriously wrong in America. And I will be the first person to tell you I'm not standing here and pointing the finger at other people, because I was part of the problem. Back in the 1980s, many of us got involved in the Get Tough on Crime campaigns. 3 strikes and you're out. If they do the crime, they need to do the time. Put them in jail, throw away the key. We got upset by some liberal judges, and we said we need the legislature to step in and put in place mandatory sentencing. We need the legislature telling the judicial branch how to sentence. Today, we have a crisis on our hands. We have a financial crisis, and the taxpayers are footing the bill. And I will tell you, we have created an enormous social crisis because of the way we incarcerate. Now, what are the issues? There are a number of issues. I'm going to try to touch on several. 4 in particular: the issue of bail, the issue of how we should be handling nonviolent criminals, mental health issues, and mandatory sentencing. But there's one broader issue I want to touch on first, and that is one of the main differences between us and other civilized nations when you look at our countries and incarceration are the number of laws. The United States has way too many laws. And again, we as conservatives are just as guilty as the liberals. And even we as activists are guilty. We hear about a problem, we call up our legislator, and what do we tell them to do? There ought to be a law. Can't you write a bill and get a bill through the House, get a bill through the Senate, and make a law? Folks, there are so many laws today that I can virtually guarantee you that whether you know it or not, you and I are probably breaking some law right now, we just don't know it. Now we can laugh about that unless we get caught and all of a sudden we find out we're before a judge. And when we go before a judge, don't think for a minute that because I'm the accused, I'm footing the bill alone. That is an enormous cost to the taxpayer. The court system is enormous. So one of the things, and you'll see this, I'm going to give you a list of things that I think we can do to make a difference, but one of them, in dealing with too many laws, I believe we need to start looking at people running for office, especially running for governor and running for president, and ask them the question, are you willing to put together, and I don't like commissions, but it's the only way to do this, a commission, to look at all the laws on the books and see which ones no longer make sense. Look at some of the laws and say, does the required penalties make sense relative to this law? We need to review top to bottom.